I know you're gonna dig this.
This is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles, recorded live here at DATV Studios in Dayton, Ohio. Now, zooming in all the way from New York, Ronald's Stozo the Clown Edwards, funk album cover, designer, artist, director, and music producer. Welcome and thank you so much for agreeing to come on our show today. Hello, Mr. Ronald.
Well, hello there, Rhythm and Rhymes. How you guys doing over there in the Funk Music Museum?
We're doing great. We're doing great, and we're so happy to have you with us. Now, I'm going to just start
that's awesome. Thank you.
Let's start right off. How did you get involved in to take you to get your name, and how did you get there? Just tell us about that.
You know what? I have to admit that, ever since the second grade in grade school, when I used to get in trouble for drawing cartoons with the teacher and the students and flirt with all the girls, even at a young age, I would draw little pictures of the girls and make jokes and clown and everything. I was like the class clown. So it started me in class clowning. And then some of my friends, right, they always said, you got to do something.
Where was this? Where was this, Mr.
This was
Ronald?
P-Funk calls it Chocolate City. But this is Washington, D.C. So that's where I was born and raised, Washington, D.C. And that's where it all started, pretty much. I will say that my friends, I had friends that were such fans of my artwork at such an early age. I was always encouraged by teachers and friends and family. They saw my clowning and drawing and skills and silliness at such an early age. Comedy, all of it, that they always kept pushing me. And so I actually literally got pushed backstage at a Funkadelic concert at the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C., a very famous theater, if you guys do your little research on that one. So I got pushed backstage, and I came prepared, though. I bought, back in those days, they had these things called hefty trash bags, big green trash bag, and I loaded it up with a bunch of, cartoons and drawings. And I said, okay, they said, we're going to make you show George Clinton and Funkadelic some of your drawings because it's just too good. And that's where part of it started, yeah.
So how were you received when you did that?
How was I received? Back in the day, they used to say, we blew your mind, or you blow somebody's mind. You get your mind blown. That's kind of funk terminology too, And so when I took it back there and I opened this bag up, it was just like a bag of tricks. And I opened this bag up,
and who were you showing it to?
They light up. They blew up.
Mr. Ronald, who were you showing this all to?
The band Funkadelic had just played on stage. So this is after the show. We had enjoyed the show. Everybody was all funked up. Oh yeah, everybody was really funked up, all right? And I was only about, let me see, I had to be about 16 years old. So I was a little teenager, still a teenager, and I'm backstage, and I got backstage. We went to this curtain that led to this hallway, and then boom, we were right in the middle of the backstage. And I think maybe I might have met George Clinton one time before at a concert, like one of those, hey, hello, how you doing, Mr. Clinton? And so they recognized me, but they'd never really seen all my artwork, right? So how did they receive me? Again, they just were blown away, totally blown away. And then I also had a little, cassette with me, a little, you know how people used to have, not the big
not the
ghetto
big,
blasters.
not the boom box.
Not the boombox, yeah. But I had a little one, and I had some of my music on it too. Some little concepts that I had been playing with at home, with me singing, playing little instruments, little keyboards, making up like acapella type of stuff. Like what's the guy's name? McFerrin kind of does, where he makes the sounds of the guitars and everything. That blew George Clinton's mind too. He was just like, boy, we got to do something with you. Somebody got to do something with you. So that's like an edited version of it a bit, yeah.
So what happened after that?
What happened after that?
Yeah, what happened after that?
After that big promise. Now this is around 1972, okay? In the middle of the big funk era, funkin' is really starting. Funk used to be a bad word, but at this point, it's in Washington, D.C., it was a household name. For some reason, Washington, D.C. had a tendency to be really funked up with music. All the funk bands would come to Washington, D.C. They would play at the Howard Theater. The Howard Theater is like the Apollo Theater of Washington, D.C. They would play at the Capitol Center, which is a big venue that's not there anymore, where you get a huge audience. Look at you shaking. You've been to the Capitol Center, right?
Yeah.
You know about it, huh? Okay. So they come to those kind of venues like that. And so I would go to all of them. I mean, I was a student of funk early, and I actually had a funk museum.
Oh.
I had a funk museum in my room at home, in my parents' house.
Okay.
And people would come by and look at all the pictures, like, see, I have these pictures back here?
Yes.
I would have like news clippings, posters, psychedelic type posters that they'd sell during that time of maybe Sly and Family Stone or Jimi Hendrix. I'd have posters, pictures of James Brown. I had it so that you would have little sections of my walls. It'd be like a huge collage room, Ryan. You'd have loved it, right? It's too bad you couldn't. Can we go back in time? I'll take you over there. I'd love to take you, but let me take you there. But anyway, I did bring some guests there. Some very big, high profile funk stars came to my little funk museum. I don't know. Everybody should know who Betty Davis is. Betty Davis is the funk queen. She was married to Miles Davis. If I'm in luck, I just might get picked. She's just the beautiful, most beautiful. And she and I hit it off at a concert, and I told her about my funk museum, and she came. She said, I gotta see this. And she came there. And again, that blew my parents' mind. Because she was dressed in her little hot pants, in those days, funk days, James Brown with the hot pants and the girls with the hot pants and the fishnets. Did you dress like that? Brian, were you dressing like that?
A little bit.
A little bit. All right.
A little bit.
So anyway, I was still in high school, and I came home from school one day. I was in the last year in high school, and then I think that it was somewhere between high school and college, because I ended up going to Howard University in Washington, D.C. Okay, a lot of folks are out of Howard University, you know that, right? Right. And I was in the art department, and then I came home from school, and my father said, Ronald, he didn't say Mr. Ronald like he said, Ronald, there is a phone call that just came in from someone named George Clinton, and he wants you to draw something for him. And so I was blown. My mind was blown. I was lit up. I was like, wow.
Did your daddy know who George Clinton was?
I'm sorry?
Did your dad know who George Clinton was?
That's a great, Ryan, you got asked awesome questions. That's an awesome question, because he didn't really know who he was, right? Not really, okay? The Parliament's I Just Want to Testify song had come out, and my parents were pretty hip. They used to listen to Motown. They used to listen to Ray Charles, and a lot of music was in my house. You know what I mean? We used to have a piano and everything. That's how I used to start doing piano stuff. But I was kind of nervous about Funkadelic because they're a little bit, like I said, funk used to be a bad word. So, but they knew I was a little bit of a hippie. So, the way I used to dress, but the good part about it, Ron, was this. My first project for P-Funk was for Fred Wesley and the Horny Horns, featuring Maceo Parker. And everybody knew who James Brown was. So when I told them I'm going to be doing a record cover for James Brown's horn section, now their minds were blown. They were like, wow, okay, all right, we're starting to get it. I didn't have the notes then, but I really, they knew I was a little clown anyway, so. But, so I was, in those days, I was Mr. RPE, Ronald PE, and I used to sign Ronald PE on all my pictures. And so actually, one of the times, Ron, when I went to one of the shows in DC, I brought a very special piece of art that I made just for Funkadelic. They hadn't hired me yet, but I brought a piece of art, and actually George Clinton bought the very first piece of art I've ever had, as someone buying my art. And what was written on that little piece of art was the title, U.S. Funk Mob, which has become an iconic term for them. So the Funk Mob is here. The Funk Mob is there. The Funk Mob is all over the United States, one nation. Actually, I actually dug up some really nice surprises for you guys. I have the original artwork that we're talking about. Okay, you ready for this? Here it is right here. Fred Wesley and the Horny Horns is still intact. I used magic markers back in the day. I don't know if you guys can see it. It might be a little bit of glare on it. But back in those days, the record companies would keep the albums, but they give them back to you. I didn't get back all of my album covers from all of my works, but this one I did. So there's Fred Wesley and his little Horny Horns and all kinds of stuff there. So that was the very first one.
So the record companies kept your artwork? I mean, is that how you did it? You turned in the artwork and then they would transfer it to an album cover, or how was that done?
Well, what would happen was we would, George Clinton would give us the title of the covers. He would give us the title, and then they would give us a tape. And we would listen to the music and just vibe on it. And he just was so in love with my work that he didn't want to spoil it. He would just let me have creative control of whatever I wanted to do. And that's how most of them came out. That's how most of the music came out with, in those days, is that, you tell someone what to play, but sometimes you ruin it if you tell someone what to draw and play, because, be some magic in seeing what comes out. Yeah.
So how long did you do that?
How long did I
do the covers for George Clinton?
You know what? I have been doing, it's 2021, all right? And I started in the mid to early 70s, okay? And, music has changed. We want to, one thing about the funk is that it's become like somewhat of an underground sensation nowadays. But there's certain groups that are incorporating it now in their, things. Those, like what I showed you, that album cover, those were huge pieces of art. And then it went to the cassette, and then it shrunk all the way down like that. And then it went to the CD, and then the artwork shrunk to a little square, And so they're telling me that a lot of kids and people today are starting to get albums again. We love our albums, right?
Oh, yes.
So,
in fact, the albums recently have shown that there's an increase in the purchase of LPs or albums or whatever we want to call them now, 33s or. So there is an increase.
I continued to work with George Clinton, but because I was such a funk freak myself, I got into the industry with George Clinton, but because I was with him and he had become such a god, you know, the overlord, you know, kind of guy, the Dr. Funkenstein, we met everybody in the business. And so people would approach me about doing projects. And so then shortly after that, they met a guy named Roger Troutman out of Bootsy Collins, okay? Bootsy Collins brought in this guy, Roger Troutman, from you guys' area, I think, from up there in Ohio. There's a lot of funk up there. Yes. Boy, are you guys funk. Your funk runneth over. Yes, it does. And, you know, a lot of bad, you know, Ohio players. And, I mean, we toured with, I went on tour with them a few times too. So we toured with all the great bands, as opening bands, as, you know, I don't know if Slave is from there, but I know there's a ton of groups from there that almost all of them open for P-Funk over there. But with this Roger thing, you know, George had done a deal with them and they were going to break Roger and Zapp. So they said, Stozo, how about you do the Zapp cover? But how about you come with us to the sessions and see what kind of feel? Now, you were asking me earlier how these things evolve. This particular project was very unique, Ryan, because they wanted the artists, it's several artists to draw for P-Funk, but they wanted a couple of us to come to this recording session and sit there and draw while the music was playing this time, which was, you know, this is a very special breaking of a groove. It's a crazy word for their name, Zapp. They wanted to see how we got zapped out by the music. So they were actually not even finished working on More Bounce to the Ounce. And here I am right at the studio, and Roger's just me, Roger, and a couple artists, and George Clinton. And I'm sitting there literally on the floor, drawing while the music's playing, while he's recording the classic Chankalank guitar line and all. And I didn't believe in the song really at the time because it was so long, and I was like, you'll never play this. This ain't going nowhere, right? This is one of the biggest projects and albums and songs ever in the funk world, you know? I actually have another surprise. This drawing right here is the original drawing right here that I did. No one has ever seen this. This is the black and white drawing that Roger Troutman chose for the art. He saw it. He said, that's it. He said, I love that. Now, I took this and, of course, I developed it and put color in it and that kind of thing like that. But yeah, he had a lot to pick from because me and the other artists were there on the floor, like drawing, and he had a pile of stuff. He's just going through it and still playing his guitar. And, oh, it was great. It was a United Sound in Detroit. That's where the old Motown studios were. So yeah. So the creation of that album, and guess what, Ryan? Here it is. Here it is. There it is. There's the original cover of Zapp. We've all seen it.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
The only thing that's missing from it is the fly. There was a little fly that we put on the cover that some people were wondering if it was real or not. It was right there, and it flew off, and it ended up on someone's head. But I'm not going to go there, all right?
Okay. I got it.
That fly is still flying around. You know, Superfly. He's the super fly. Huh?
So, you know, I mean, what makes this so fascinating, Mr. Ronald, is the fact that to have the history and the study of how album covers really come about, and especially during the funk music era, and what you just shared with us it's just fascinating, because most people probably don't give much thought to how an album cover comes about. They just see it, it appears. And you're giving us the background on how you did this and how you continue to do this. And just for the sake of conversation, how does one get interested in a profession such as yours? I mean, how do I get there?
How do you get there? Well, you know, the thing about it is, you know, I was already there, I guess, as a kid. I had a special skill, and, you know, kids in my family, you can see it sometimes. You see it, and you don't want to stop them from doing it. You know, there was a lot of resistance to Mr. Ronald, Mr. Stozo pursuing it as a career, but they could see, my parents could see right from the beginning. I think this happens with a lot of entertainers and a lot of talented kids that start dancing real early or start drawing real early. I mean, you can go to school and learn it. You remember when, you know, it was almost essential to have your kids learn piano or, and there was also this little funny thing, Ryan, where they would have, remember the thing that you see in the little magazines, if you could draw a Blinky, the little thing, whatever it was, I don't know if it was a deer or something. And you could get a little school scholarship or something. But for me, I always had a natural talent, and I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. And starting so early, I just stuck with it. It was fun. I always say that if something is fun, you know, that's the best work, or that's the best project, is if something is fun. You know, fun. Look, I'm looking at your logo. It's 3/4 fun. You guys just add the K to it. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but you know, I always encourage it. If I ever meet a young kid or something like that, I always encourage you to push it. Mm-hmm.
So do you instruct at any of the local universities on this, or?
Yeah, you know, actually one of my specialties is doing caricatures. As you see the faces and the pictures behind me, those are paintings of people. You got Erykah Badu and Prince and Hendrix and James Brown and Michael Jackson. I think he's over there.
Yeah.
I do caricatures, and if you ever go to parks, right, or parties, and there's a guy with a big art easel and the people are sitting in the chair, that's me. I do that also. So the caricatures that I do are, you know, they can be I've used them in newspapers, magazines, all sorts, animations, cartoons. I mean, so yeah, that's something that I have been invited. I've been invited down to the Duke Ellington School of Art in Washington, D.C., a very famous art school, to do classes. Like, I'll be the guest artist, and there'll be a room full of mirrors. I mean, kids. There will be a room full of kids, and fascinating. And by the end of the time where I've shown them, we pick a student, I'll put him up in the front, I'll have all the kids draw them in a cartoon style, not like a portrait, you know, you gotta find something funny. And by the time I'm finished teaching them and showing them how I do it, oh boy, they mobbed me after the thing. Wow, you know, it's like, they didn't even know that existed. They've seen it, everybody's seen it, but to do it is so much fun. And so I do teach it every once in a while. Professor Funk cartoonist.
Now, so tell me this, Mr. Ronald, do you ever do anything that has to do with like movies or posters or for maybe poets, or, I mean, how extensive is the work that you do?
Well, you know what? That's a cool question, because, you know, around the time when I was in the college days, right? School days, no pun intended. I met a guy named Spike Lee, who was Spike Lee. I mean, he was a kid going to school, going to college. He was interested in movies, right? And I had a friend that was working with him and helping him put together his productions, right? And she was like, Ronald, Stozo, you got to meet my friend Spike. I'm like, for what? Oh, he just gonna love what you do, and you're gonna love what he does. You guys got to meet. And it's way before the Spike Lee we all know, right? And I met Spike Lee, and Spike Lee, I met him in New York, went to the studio. He was in the middle of editing She's Gotta Have It, the movie that he started with. And I had brought with me this little cartoon caricature, like I said, of Prince that I had made for the opening of Purple Rain. I think Purple Rain had happened then. And I brought it with me. Well, I didn't bring that with me. I gave it to the young lady, but she was a big Prince fan. I mean, what young lady at that time wasn't a big friend. So I gave her this thing, and she gave it to Spike. Spike put it in the movie. So it ended up being in one of my pieces is in one of his movies, and he puts it in the movie as a piece of art that's in the movie. So that's in the movie. But I actually later on was contacted to draw some ideas for a poster or artwork for posters for the movie, Do the Right Thing. So I worked on that. And then later on down the road, it was this big Lee family connection. Spike Lee's sister and brother produced a show for Nickelodeon called Accidentally on Purpose. And Mr. Ronald does all kinds of art. Of course, I'm a musician, a music producer, I act, and I do it all. And I ended up doing puppets. So I'm a puppeteer too. And I did puppets for this TV show for kids for Spike Lee's sister and brother. It was a pilot. It didn't get out, but it was so much fun doing it. It had Screaming Jay Hawkins in it, Iggy Pop. They had really guest celebrities in it. And plus, they were kind of like Sesame Street meets Pee-wee's Pet Playhouse. So yeah, and I've done movie posters. Of course, I've done props. You know, I did stage shows for P-Funk. I've actually played some of the characters. There's a thing out now called Tales from the Tour Bus, which is a Mike Judd, the cartoonist for Beavis and Butthead. He has me in there talking and narrating like I'm doing now. And I was one of the characters from the stories that we put out, and I had to wear a snowman outfit and do a lot of stage stuff. And that was at the Apollo Theater. So I really was proud to actually work the stage at the Apollo Theater. So my artwork has shown up everywhere, Ryan, everywhere.
So, Mr.
And I'm my artwork too, you know. I'm also.
So tell me, okay, Mr. Ronald, I need to know, now we need to know about the nose. We need to know about where you get this Stozo the Clown. I mean, you told me that you clowned all through school and all of that, but tell us how we got there.
Well, you know, one part of being in P-Funk, right, is that everybody, well, I'll tell you, it kind of started on Halloween. One time, you know, I wanted to win a Halloween costume contest. And so I came up with this idea that I was gonna, you know, it was more than just the nose. I actually created this character that had a whole face and a whole body and everything. I wanted to win this Halloween contest, right? And Halloween was big in Washington, D.C., and it's big in some cities. There's just people go all out, adults go all out, kids do, even at a young age. And so I went to this club. They wouldn't even let me in the club, right? Because the costume was I was like a giant puppet of a clown. I created this thing. They said, "Sir, you gotta take that costume off for a second. We gotta see you before you come in." You know, I said, all right. Now, I did not win the contest, but later on, like I said, in P-Funk, everybody's a character. You know, George Clinton loved that. It was like Halloween on stage. You got the Diaper Man, you got all kinds of, so everybody, once I had established my character, right, I always loved, what's his name, Red Skelton, and he used to do the greatest clowns. I always loved all the comedians, and I said, you know what, since I'm a cartoonist and I make people laugh, I'm going to create a character, and I'm going to do this, because in rock and roll and funk and everything, you have to have a unique part of your act. And I said, you know, I'm going to do this clown thing. So I combined Bozo with Stone. Like, you know, back in the day, like, remember Soul Train, Don Canale used to say, it's going to be a stone gas. You know, it's some old school funk terminology, you know, let's go get Stone. So I combined Stone with Bozo. So I'm a Stone Bozo, and that's where Stozo came together. And so I said the nose would be a good prop. You know, sometimes it falls off when I'm getting down or I'm playing music or doing something or working. But yeah. It's been a fun character. People love it. Well, and he's funky too. He's the funkiest clown around.
It's a way that you explain it makes it really excitingly funky.
And girls like to walk up to it and squeeze it like that. So, you know, I get a little action with it too.
well, I mean, it's cheaper than a Corvette.
So, Little Rick, so I have been doing that since the 70s. And I used to sign, when I signed my signature on my work, I don't have anything with me right now. Oh, by the way, I also have the Funkadelic cover that I did. I used to draw Rhine on circles. See how this is round like this?
Yes. Okay,
the final album cover of this is a square. But there was an artist, a little bit longer there.
Yeah.
Some people haven't seen the full original version of it. This artist that did the album cover for Roberta Flack, his name is Lou Stovall, Feel Like Making Love to You album. He lived in Washington too. And he came to Howard University and I met him. And he had a stack of these circles that he would throw away because most of his artwork was circled too. Actually, if you see the cover of Feel Like Making Love by Roberta Flack, you'll see it's a round picture. And he's a very beautiful Black artist and people respected his silk screens. And so he said, hey man, you want these circles? I said, oh, heck yeah, I'll take those circles and I'll funk those circles out. And that's how the Funkadelic cover got done. That's how Fuzzy Haskins got done. A lot of people have collections of my circles artwork. So, something from nothing. You take a circle, a blank circle, and see what I did with it.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, Mr. Ronald. Why do you think it's important that we have a Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center?
Just so you can have people like me up in the house. And you too. Funk is so important to me, and I'm a funk musician too. I write music. I'm not the greatest guitar player, so I have had some of the greatest guitar players and musicians. I have an album coming out. It's called Clown Red, and it's a tribute album to a lot of the artists that are not with us anymore that worked with me. I wrote the songs and they played them. You got people like Eddie Hazel and Cynthia Robinson from Sly and the Stone. It's loaded. And so what I've tried to do is, they say we're gonna party like it's 1999. I'm still partying like it's 1969, and so I don't know nothing about that. Yes, I do. And so I've always felt like the funk was important. Remember earlier I was telling you about my funk cave. I was telling you about my museum, and I'm on a mission to keep the funk in position. You know what I mean? I think that the museum is the most beautiful idea. We got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay, it focuses on rock. We have a few funk stars in there, right? But you guys in Dayton have had some incredible talent come from your town. Won't you take me to Funky Town? Remember that song?
Yes.
So wherever this museum is going to be, they just opened up something in Nashville recently. But focusing on the funk is such a culture, right? It's a frame of mind. It's a style. It's a lot of love and unity too. People talk about unity and everyday people and all that stuff, but funk brings everybody together in such a special way. It was just like an era that still needs to exist. Can you imagine trying to keep an era to exist?
Well, I think we've been doing a pretty good job, and we have to continue with people like you.
You guys have been doing an excellent job.
But,
from what I've
so
seen. Yes.
Mr. Ronald, you have your guitar. You gonna do something with it, or are you just showing me how you hold it?
It might not. It might be out of tune.
Oh.
But see, I leave all of my guitar playing to. This is one of my favorite guitars. Someone gave me this a long time ago. But I'm going for the best, Ryan, like you. You're one of the best, and you're doing something that's the best as far as I'm concerned, trying to preserve and conserve the preservation of the motivation of hips, of being hip. Funk is very hip. What is hip? What is it? Tyler Power asked that question a long time ago. The funk is hip. What do you like about the funk?
Interviewing you, Mr. Ronald. Mr.
I'm
Ronald.
loving it. You know I am. It's got me all funked up. See, I'm all moved. I can't even stop moving. See, funk makes you move. It makes you groove, you know. You just have to approve, you know, that's all.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Ronald, for being with us here today and sharing a different aspect of the funk history, which is one of the parts of this history is sometimes overlooked, but it's a critical part because it is the attractor. So with that, I wish you much success on your album and all the things that you are doing, and to continue to keep yourself busy, which evidently you do very well. So this is Rhine McLin, host of the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center's award-winning show, Funk Chronicles. Until the next time, let's keep it funky, funky, funky.
Thank you.